Hi everyone, DM Guy here, coming to you from inside of a nice gentle rainstorm. Not sure if you'll be able to hear it, but if you do hear the soothing sounds of rain, just understand that is what's going on here. So today I wanted to take a little bit of a departure from my series about how to run modules as a DM, and I wanted to talk about something that's a little bit more player focused. So today I was watching some videos, and one of them happened to come across my dashboard that was alignment in D&D and how that particular person used it. So they basically had come to the conclusion that 5e strips down alignment to very bare bones, which is absolutely true. I was looking to see what I could put up as a background, so I figured, oh, why not look at the DM's Guide and Player's Handbook and see what they have to say about alignment. All that remains of alignment in the entirety of the book is just this quick little couple paragraphs here. This is all that they give you about alignment in the Player's Handbook. I'm going to pick out a few parts here to go over, but in this video I just kind of wanted to give a little overview of why I think that alignment is still really essential and how I use it. And I think that this video might ruffle a few feathers, goes against the grain a little bit of most creators, because most people would generally agree that alignment doesn't really matter anymore. It's more about how the character plays and not really what's written down on your character sheet. And I agree with that, but to a certain extent, I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive, and I'll explain that here. So to start off with it, the first thing I want to point out is that there are two factors of alignment. There's the morality, good and evil, and then there is the attitude towards society and order, which is law, chaos, or neutral. So this second part, I think, is one that gets overlooked a whole lot. So this is basically, as Matt Colville would say, this is where you're throwing your hat in at the end of the day. Are you on the side of order, being law, or are you on the side of chaos, which could also be described as freedom, or, yeah. So like elves, in the original conception of them, would generally tend to be more chaotic because they believe that there should not be as much of a structure as humans put to the world. So that's one of the things that I really like to roleplay it up, is these might not actually impact your character's choices a whole ton. They may, depending on your character. But these could also just be a general thing that is where you fall in the cosmology of the universe. And then the next thing that I want to point out here is that they actually do include these two sentences here. This is a brief description of the 9 alignments. It describes typical behavior of a creature with that alignment. Individuals might vary significantly from typical behavior, and few are perfectly consistently faithful to their perceived alignment. I think that's important because it's basically saying, hey, this is just a starting point. You don't have to play it exactly as a rigid thing to bound your character with. And that's kind of how I see it, is that it's something that your character can start from, but should expand to where people are like, oh yeah, that's just the character, not that character is this. So these are all very pared down descriptions of alignments, overly reductive in my opinion. Not really too useful. The one thing that I do find useful about these is that they'll tell you what type of creatures might be in their respective alignment categories. And some of those are actually a little bit interesting, like ones that I would not typically assume would take that stance. So that gives you maybe a little bit of an idea. The last thing that I wanted to point out here is that, so alignment is a moral choice for all of these free races, and then certain other races are bound more to their gods, which makes their alignments more rigid, but they still can play counter to that. That can be an interesting idea for a character where you do have them going against their nature a little bit. Could be just a little bit of a flaw that you could build in to get some character development out of. But then the really juicy part here that I wanted to bring up, because I think this is very essential to how I understand alignment, So, alignment is an essential part of the nature of celestials and fiends. A devil does not choose to be lawful evil. It doesn't tend towards lawful either, but rather it's lawful evil in its essence. If it ceased to be lawful evil, it would cease to be a devil. So to me, that is kind of how I play my characters too. They start with this they start with an alignment that is what they believe about the world. But unlike the devil, unlike the celestial, that is not exactly who they are going to end up being. You can change your alignment throughout the game. In fact, several of my characters, I have at various points erased their alignment and rewritten it. I think that's perfectly acceptable. It doesn't just have to be something that your DM tells you, hey, hand me your character sheet, then scratches out lawful good and turns it to chaotic evil. You can do it yourself, just as natural development happens. So the reason that I think that this is a very important part of the game still is that you really need somewhere to hang your hat in the cosmology of the universe. So where do you fit in the grand scale of things? To me, I really like the bigger picture of the D&D world, which is like the Blood Wars, where the demons versus the devils versus the angels, how all of those are kind of in conflict because they're so fundamentally different. And that fundamental difference can be represented a lot through their alignment. So the devils don't like the demons because the demons are trying to end all order, but the devils respect the fact that there is order and they play within that while they are still evil. And I think that characters kind of follow a similar path as well, where they might not be exactly one alignment or another, but they do kind of, at the end of the day, if you had to decide where they would fall if the world was ending, you should be able to say that. So for example, I play a Yuan-Ti Pureblood that plays very much just like any normal party member, but on his alignment sheet, he is chaotic evil because their society as a whole is chaotic evil. And he is very much a product of his society. So, at the end of the day, if the apocalypse happened and they said, which side are you on? Are you going to help the Celestials try and beat back the demons, or are you going to go with the demons? He would go with the demons, and the rest of the party might be like, dude, what the hell? What are you doing? But he's just going to be like, this is where I was meant to be. And I think that's perfectly fine. That brings me to my next point, is that you don't have to play any of these alignments in complete opposition to your party members. If you're a lawful good paladin, you can coexist with a chaotic evil rogue. Those two things do not have to absolutely come into conflict. There will be, at times, tension, but you do not have to come to blows with that character, because both people are rational. They understand they don't have to fight each other. They can be useful to one another. And in fact, they can even come to respect differences, possibly, and change their characters throughout a campaign. That's something that I very much believe, and it's one of the reasons that I like to play a lot of evil characters, because you very much don't get people who recognize that fact and play it well. And so you have a lot of DMs and a lot of players who basically say, oh, there's no evil in this campaign. That's one of the reasons that I started this video up, is that the person's video that I was listening to said you can write whatever you want to on your character sheet, but at the end of the day, you cannot do evil actions in game. And that absolutely infuriated me. Because if you're not allowed to play what your character would do, then what's the point of playing your character at all? You just have to do it in a way that makes sense. So if your character is an evil character that's going to eventually do some bad stuff, and the party doesn't like that, I would say that it's your job to not be a complete jerk about it, but it's also their job to try and convince you to either not do it or to find a compromise for you. And that can be really good, fun party interaction. The party dynamic between people that are ideologically at odds, I find to be very fun. Some people don't. Some people don't like any of this, and I can respect the people that say, hey, you can't, like, we're all going to play good this game. Like, that's fine. I just think that it is overly reductive to good players. So the reason that I don't think that we should throw out alignment totally in this game primarily has to do with the way that the game was built originally. Originally, alignment didn't just mean something that was written on your paper, that's how you played your character roughly. Originally, it had a lot more effects. It had various items that you couldn't attune to if you were evil or good. It had certain classes that you could only be certain alignments for. Like druids used to only be allowed to be true neutral because they were not allowed to get involved into like the politics of the world. They were just worried about nature. Paladins, they had to be lawful good because they were the utmost pinnacle of society. So we still have some holdovers from the previous parts of the game. This Talisman of Pure Good and Ultimate Evil, these are one of them. So it requires attunement by a creature of good alignment, and additionally, if you are a good cleric or paladin, you can use this as a holy symbol and gain an extra bonus. So it used to be that you, I believe, had to be a good aligned cleric to use this. And what it does is it specifically allows you to use this against evil aligned characters. Used to be an evil aligned cleric. And whenever you use one of its charges, it will open up, literally the earth will open up and swallow an evil aligned character if they fail this DC 20 dex save. So that was a really cool item. I got this in AD&D, and it was basically game changing. It was like, dude, I don't know if we're ever going to use this, but like if we come across like a big bad that happens to be an evil aligned cleric, we can just swallow him into the earth. That was really cool. You don't get that if you don't have alignment, because what is it going to say? The Talisman of Pure Kill Anyone-ness? No, because there's part of the cosmology that just doesn't make sense without alignment. Like angels and demons don't make sense without the alignment chart, because they fundamentally exist in those spaces. And if you say that those spaces don't really exist, you're kind of just overly simplifying the game. Taking out meaning where there really should be, but it has gotten to a place where it's harmful because some people don't understand exactly how it works. So that's just my 2 cents on alignment. I like to use it in my games. I put more stuff in, like this Talisman of Pure Good and Ultimate Evil. I will have players switch their alignments whenever they feel like it. Any sort of stuff like that, because I find it fun. If you don't find it fun, you can take it out. Plenty of people do. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one, guys.